Good evening and welcome to the collaborative vision for the Central Massachusetts Life Sciences Cluster. My name is John Weaver, and I'm the new President and CEO of Massachusetts Biomedical Initiatives. Tonight, we're excited to celebrate how far we have come here in Central Massachusetts, and also to offer a vision for the future. I'd like to take a moment to thank my predecessor, Kevin O'Sullivan. Thanks to Kevin's 20 years of leadership, MBI is very well positioned for this future. I'd also like to thank Dr. Abraham Haddad for playing a pivotal role in shaping this cluster for almost 40 years. After 13 years as chair, Abe has made the decision to step back into the vice chair role. Abe, in honor of your countless hours to this organization, thank you. Abe will be succeeded by our current vice chair, Bob Anderson. Bob was a former general counsel of BASF and Abbott, and you'll meet him a little later tonight. I want to thank our elected officials who have been our partners throughout all of these projects, and without whom none of tonight's success would be possible. I believe the city manager at Augustus is here, Mayor Joseph Petty, Senator Harriet Chandler, Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito, who we're going to hear from in just a moment, Representative John Mahoney, and Representative Hannah Kane, and Ken Bergeron from Rep. O'Day's office is here as well. Thank you all for your support. We also want to thank our statewide partner, MassBio, as well as our partners at the City of Worcester's Economic Development Coordinating Council, including the City of Worcester, Worcester Business Development Corporation, Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce. Worcester is known for possessing the collaborative gene, and it's evident in these partners. Tonight's program would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors, and I'd like to thank our DNA level sponsor, AbbVie, who has been a cornerstone of this cluster for nearly 30 years. Special thanks to our RNA level sponsors, Alexandria Real Estate Equities, Consigli Construction, and Euro-American Worldwide Logistics, as well as our protein level sponsors, Baker, Berkshire Bank, Cogmedics, Flexcon, David R. and Rosalie Grennan, Lab Architect Group, Left Field, and Philip R. Morgan. Thank you all for your ongoing support. So it's an exciting time in Central Massachusetts right now. So much development is underway, and more is in the planning phases. Hopefully, our hope tonight was to take a moment to pause and celebrate our past achievements and hopefully learn some lessons that can help guide our future. The Baker-Polito administration has been at the center of so much of our regional success, with initiatives in housing choice, leading the STEM Advisory Council, and efforts to improve our infrastructure here in the Commonwealth. In 2015, MBI unveiled a vision for a biomanufacturing park here in the city on Commonwealth land near the Worcester State Hospital that we had absolutely zero control over. Fortunately, this vision aligned with the Baker-Polito administration's Open for Business initiative. And for nearly 2 years, Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito co-chaired the Worcester Biomanufacturing Initiative, a collaborative group of local stakeholders who succeeded in transferring 46 acres of Commonwealth land to our partners at the WBDC for biomanufacturing. We're going to hear some exciting announcements on this later, but none of this would have been possible without the hard work and leadership of Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito. Please join me in welcoming Karen Polito to the stage.
Well, good evening. It is great to see a packed house here tonight, obviously to celebrate the achievements of MBI, but also the achievements of our very good friend, Abe Haddad. It's not lost on any of us that this is a great collection of your friends and supporters and fans, including two of my biggest fans, my parents, Fran and Judy Polito. I just want to say thank you for coming. I just wanted to share just a few words of welcoming to everyone here tonight. And as John had said, to pause a moment to just sort of collect our thoughts about where we are as a Commonwealth and where we are as a region and in Central Massachusetts. I don't want you to pause too long because I think about this as sort of the flywheel effect. And when you think about a flywheel and what that movement is, and you need something to certainly get it started, but then you need to have certain events that connect to each other that continue to keep it moving. I feel very much like Massachusetts and Central Massachusetts are certainly on a flywheel that's moving pretty well. And let's just talk about that for a moment. First of all, I think that this whole word about collaboration is one of the pillars of our success in this Commonwealth. The idea, and more the reality, that we look in government, you see my colleagues in the legislature, our municipal friends, all working together, thinking about the common ground and moving Massachusetts forward is really important asset. And you obviously know that Governor Baker and I will continue to work in a collaborative fashion to make you proud in this Commonwealth. We're quite honored to be able to build on the prior 4 years of our work to do more. I also think that the success of our life science industry here in Massachusetts is based on collaboration. When you think about our academic institutions and government and academia coming together, that clearly is the collaboration that has helped this Commonwealth be a leader in terms of life science and medical device manufacturing and the research and development and manufacturing of therapies and treatments to make people well here in this Commonwealth, all here. But I also think that the collaboration here in Central Massachusetts, as I've been able to visit all the regions of the Commonwealth, and in fact every city and town of this Commonwealth, it really strikes me as the real center of that wheel here in Central Massachusetts, this collaboration, the vision that's shared and that's common to all of the stakeholders here, and the real ability to get things done that has really helped Central Massachusetts succeed. When you think about the pillars here, certainly UMass Medical School, where a tremendous amount of research has been done over the course of years around the life sciences. You think about our academic partner like WPI, where a whole lot of research is being done, and that's why Mass Life Sciences, and Travis McCready is here, but you'll be hearing from him soon, is it continuing to invest in these places to catalyze the research and development that's needed in this industry, in this cluster. You think about the investments that we're making, not only in those two academic institutions, but in their training and their research. So what happens with that? What happens is you have people with tremendous talent and ideas that are discovering therapies, discovering devices and treatments. But then they need to be able to take that idea and all that they have, that they've been working on, and take it up a notch. And that's where MBI was such a pioneer, and people like Abe Haddad over 40 years ago thinking about how do we incubate this talent? How do we help these great thinkers not only start up their business, but then stay here? And the idea of an incubator is so alive and well here in this central part of our Commonwealth. And as I go around the state for this new economic development plan that we're putting together, the word incubator comes up over and over again. So I really believe while you think about what's happening in Eastern Mass, what's happening here in Central Massachusetts through the incubation of these ideas is real, and it's been real for a very long time. And that's why we were recently able to invest $3.5 million for MBI to expand their incubator to accelerators. So starting early stage, and then to stage 2 businesses, and then these businesses grow and they stay here. And you'll hear about some of these success stories today. And I think that incubation of ideas and the use of talent is really a hallmark of what you celebrate tonight. And the ability for companies to start up and stay here needs to be more of a reality that we can certainly catalyze and think more intentionally about with you. When you look at that flywheel, not only MBI, then you think about the biomanufacturing park that we, through the state's efforts and the collaboration with the EDC and BDC, and Craig will speak of this. The idea of taking these startups and helping them think about their small to medium-sized enterprises and having a manufacturing park in close proximity to where the research is being done is what you're seeing in life sciences as the new thing. These smaller, new novel therapies, like personalized treatments to help people get well, need to have not only the talent, but also the ability to test it out. Literally will happen here within steps of one another. And it's that proximity that I believe we can really build on now here in central Massachusetts with all of these pieces in place. The research, the talent, the incubation, the acceleration, the testing through the manufacturing at this park is all here. And then when you think about people from Boston like David Lucchino coming out for a visit and saying, wouldn't it be great to attract more life science companies in the Canal District at a venue adjacent to the new Worcester Red Sox? So that clearly outlines the flywheel effect that all of this is happening, and that started with someone like Abe Haddad, who really put his shoulder behind this effort and continued to put the shoulder behind this effort for over 40 years. So that's a really great success story, but now you got to take your other shoulder and continue to move that wheel with us, Abe. We are very proud of your efforts, and we thank you for your leadership. And speaking of leadership, I just want to acknowledge not only John Weaver's ability to come forward and continue the great work of MBI, but certainly to acknowledge Kevin O'Sullivan, who long a time ago said, it's great what's happening in Kendall Square, but it can happen here in central Massachusetts, and you clearly have been a catalyst for this forward movement for our life science cluster in central Massachusetts. This is the most rested and relaxed I've seen you in many years, so I'm really happy that it's agreeing with both you and Linda and enjoy it, but it's really great to see you here tonight. So we have a great panel. I know Governor Dukakis is in the house, so we're looking forward to hearing from you and from others. But let's not take any of this for granted. Remember the flywheel, and remember that all of our efforts are needed in order to continue to see this forward progress and movement, not only for central Massachusetts, but for this great Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you all, and I look forward to the presentation.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Our regional life science cluster started with a thoughtful vision, executed over many years by a multitude of partners. In the next few minutes, we'd like to show a video that documents the transformation of our post-industrial town into a burgeoning part of our regional life sciences cluster.
Worcester and that collaborative gene really works. I mean, we're not Boston, we're not San Francisco. We basically have to work hard at our economic developments.
Worcester has such a history now in showing how collaborative we are. At the very beginning, it was this group of visionaries with an idea.
The seed was planted with the medical school, and everything essentially grew out of that base.
The process for citing the University of Massachusetts Medical School in Worcester was fairly complicated. The physicians from Boston who came to Worcester came and occupied what used to be a farm. The question was whether they could actually create an educational, research, and clinical care institution that could become the bedrock of a community.
The academic force that is this community is huge, and all of that really contributed to a sense that there was a critical mass of research that could be the wellspring of new opportunities.
On the heels of the development of the University of Massachusetts Medical School and the research that was being done there, the park became extremely important for more comprehensive, more in-depth research and development.
Having the academic community and the research community behind the project, as well as the political community and the community at large, was an important ingredient in terms of the success of establishing the park and getting BSF here.
The fact that it was ready and we were prepared is why BSF, a very thorough and detailed German company, ended up choosing that site. If it were not available, it would have been located someplace else, and we would have all lost out.
The initial goal of the organization was to really create a new industrial sector in this part of the state.
Our economy was not well. Our manufacturing had gone south and overseas, and we were hurting. We needed to do something fast. The hard part was thinking about what is biotechnology. It was a new concept, not just to Worcester or to Massachusetts, but to the world.
In the mid-70s and early 80s, a strategic decision was made to separate and have the WBDC focus on building a biotechnology and life science cluster here in the Worcester area. WBDC was connected with MBI through an initiative of the Chamber of Commerce in the city of Worcester, where they thought that we needed to take the idea of incubation and providing an ecosystem for young startup companies to be born here in Worcester and to service the rest of the Commonwealth.
When you have a scientist with an idea, thinking, boy, this might be a commercial entity, but needs a little bit of help. MBI comes in, helps with a lab, helps with service providers.
Creating new companies, encouraging many of them to stay and grow here in the region. That really was the initial impetus for this organization, and one that frankly no one else was doing, not only in the country, but in the world at that point.
The most difficult part of this equation is to translate that science actually into a company that ultimately can create a product for the patient. MBI is the connector from the science all the way to when a company is commercialized.
MBI approached us in a way that allowed us to seamlessly, directly go to the market and focus on the science. And that's what our customers wanted, and that's what we're good at. And we had grown from very small roots to an international company.
The Gateway Park project started as a brownfields reclamation project with the city of Worcester. The initial vision was to reclaim about 20 acres of property, save the historic buildings that could be saved, and construct new modern facilities for labs, classrooms that would allow for WPI to continue its growth in the area of bioengineering.
Gateway is a brand that everybody understands in Worcester. They drive by it. It reminds me of the Biotech Park. People would go by there and say, wow, I don't know what's going on up there, but it's good. It's jobs. It's science.
Gateway Park, up until 15 or so years ago, it looked like Worcester's past. And now, Gateway Park is something that showcases Worcester's future.
The vision was to create a biomanufacturing component. You know, once the drug is discovered, it's got to be manufactured. So that was very much a part of the strategic plan of the Biotechnology Research Park.
The Baker-Polito administration put forth a very bold challenge to municipalities by creating the Open for Business program. The city of Worcester, along with the WBDC, the Chamber, and MBI, filed a very aggressive proposal that called for the redevelopment of 46 acres of surplus Worcester State Hospital land into a biomanufacturing park.
We will have the biomanufacturing here. We will then have more clinical trials here. We will then have more researchers who do that type of research here. It will flourish and grow, and people all over the world will know that and come here.
This area has its act together. That sends a signal of confidence to private investors and to developers.
You know, if you want to get something done in Worcester, it's pretty easy. The leaders of our community get it. The government works. There's an incredible partnership among the educational institutions, and that is now spilled over into the research cluster.
Now we're at a point where some of this momentum is starting to fuel itself. People like that sense of success, and that breeds more investment, more success.
Innovation and brains are our product here in Worcester, and we need that workforce. And I know that MBI will continue to play a lead role on that. But we're still number one, and we need to continue to understand that everybody wants what we have. So let's keep our eye on the ball, our eye on the future, and keep building the industry.
one of the things I think that amazes me so much about this is that when Abe and others started this project about 40 years ago, they didn't know what it would become. And they took a chance and they pushed forward. And with the collaborative will and partnership, they were able to make some amazing things happen. And we're excited about that future here in the city. Would Gail Radcliffe please join me on the stage? Gail Radcliffe has been a member of the MBI Board of Trustees since 2003 and served for many years as the clerk of the organization. Gail founded Radcliffe Consulting in 1998 and has been assisting startup and established medical device companies with technical assessment, market research, and clinical and regulatory issues since that time. Gail obtained a PhD in molecular biology from Brown University and completed her postdoctoral fellowship in molecular immunology here at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. In addition to her service on the MBI board, Gail has volunteered her time and talents to many of MBI's early stage startups throughout the years and will chair our new business strategy committee that will be kicking off this summer to help companies refine their business strategy, build out their management teams, and seek investments. Please join me in welcoming Gail Radcliffe to introduce our panelists and MC our panel discussion. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you, John, for the warm introduction. Welcome, everyone. Isn't Mechanics Hall a wonderful place to have this venue? But I want a show of hands for how many of you remember this place as a roller skating rink. Okay, keep your hand raised if you actually roller skated here. So I'm willing to tell you I'm that old. So those are the townies who, along with very bright, passionate, driven people like Abe Haddad, had an idea and to bring life sciences to a city that was losing its manufacturing base. We're lucky to have MBI have leaders such as Kevin O'Sullivan, the Energizer Bunny, and taking it forward with John Weaver. We're looking forward to the future. We're gathered here today to celebrate the collaborative vision of Central Massachusetts Life Sciences Center and maybe pat ourselves on the back a little bit because MBI has succeeded in its mission. But I was reminded by Travis McCready a few weeks ago that our vision may be nearsighted. We should not be thinking of Worcester as a small town, but rather that these townies among us are some of the best and brightest in the world. We are competing on a world stage. So let that be our base for today's event. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes reviewing our history and talking about ways in which we can chart our paths to the future. So with that, let me invite our panelists to the stage. And while you are coming up to help with time, I will actually start with these introductions. And actually, the first person is the Honorable Michael Dukakis, who needs no introduction. But because he's a fellow Greek, I'm going to give it to him anyway. How's that? Right there. So as a distinguished professor of political science at Northeastern University and a visiting professor of public policy at the UCLA School of Public Affairs, Michael Dukakis brings 4 decades of experience as an attorney, state legislator, governor, and presidential candidate to the classroom. He was born and raised in Brookline, Massachusetts. He served 2 years in the Army in Korea before entering Harvard Law School. He then entered public service, coming back to Brookline and serving as a member of the Brookline Town Meeting. He was then elected to the Massachusetts legislature in 1962 and went on in public service to serve 3 terms as governor of Massachusetts, interrupting his last term to run for president in 1988. Welcome.
Next to Governor Dukakis is the Honorable Timothy P. Murray. Tim became president and CEO of the Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce in June of 2013. The Chamber's mission is to recruit, retain, and incubate new businesses to the region and to nurture those in emerging sectors. Sound familiar? Prior to the Chamber, Tim was elected Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in 2006, following a historic grassroots campaign alongside Governor Deval Patrick. Tim led the Patrick Murray administration's negotiation with CSX regarding the historic acquisition of tracks across the Commonwealth and facilitated Massport's acquisition of Worcester Regional Airport. A true Worcester townie, he was a three-term mayor of Worcester. Under Tim's leadership, Worcester experienced unprecedented progress with $1 billion of new economic development projects such as Gateway Park and City Square. Again. And the tall guy next to Tim is Travis McCready. Travis is the president and CEO of the Massachusetts Life Sciences Center, a $1 billion public-private partnership that is tasked with advancing life sciences in Massachusetts. Travis directs and oversees the center's investment strategy, including the agency's operations, programs, and partnerships. Prior to his position at the Mass Life Sciences Center, Travis was vice president for programs at the Boston Foundation, directing grants to benefit the people of Greater Boston. He was also the first executive director of the Kendall Square Association and has held COO and CFO positions at the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority. He started his career as a public school teacher, which may be where he learned the skills that he needs to collaborate with stakeholders in his current position. In 2018, he was named one of the 100 most influential people in Boston by Boston Magazine. Welcome. And last but not least is Dr. Lisa Olson. Dr. Olson is currently the Divisional Vice President for Immunology Research at the AbbVie Bioresearch Center and the site head for AbbVie's Research Center in Worcester and Cambridge. Dr. Olson began her career as an academic scientist at Washington University in St. Louis. She made that leap and left academia to lead the women's health program within the nutritional sector of Monsanto Corp. 2 years later, she joined the arthritis and inflammation department at Pharmacia. Dr. Olson then joined AbbVie, formerly Abbott, in 2005 as director of pharmacology and has had roles of increasing responsibility ever since, becoming site head of the AbbVie Bioresearch Center in Worcester in 2012 and the Cambridge Research Center in 2018. So here's your panelists. So we're going to kick this off kind of in time, which means we're starting with you, Governor Dukakis. So the growth of the Massachusetts cluster began with siting the University of Massachusetts Medical School campus in Worcester. Building off of that investment, Worcester leaders collaborated with state officials to develop the Massachusetts Biotechnology Research Park, now known as the University of Massachusetts Medicine Science Park. The park was the first biotechnology-focused research park in the Commonwealth and helped seed the central Massachusetts cluster's growth. Could you please, if you would, summarize the history, just easy, because you teach, you can do this, as well as the political and economic development process involved in the projects in the early days, and answer the question, why Worcester?
It was a natural. No, it wasn't. Let me keep this as brief as I can. As many of you know, when I first became governor, I was particularly concerned about the condition of the state's cities, who almost without exception were in terrible shape. And there really wasn't a plan or a concept for trying to deal with this. We had unemployment rates in the 20s in these older urban communities when I first became governor. Then, of course, I got defeated for re-election 4 years later, which was therapeutic in some respects. I've often said I was a pretty good talker when I went into politics, but not a very good listener. Losing makes you a much better listener and a much better consensus builder, I should say. And so I was fortunate enough to be re-elected 4 years later. And during that campaign, Gail, it was very interesting. I'll never forget a brutally hot August morning in this city where I and Jerry D'Amico stood on that hill, which is now occupied by some great, great companies, with grass up to our armpits. And I pledged that if I got elected governor again, we would do the Worcester Biotech Park. I couldn't possibly have imagined, folks, and I'm an optimist by nature, but I couldn't possibly have imagined that it would have been as successful. And it's the result of an enormous amount of work that's been done here, and my hat's off to all of you. It's just very special for Kitty and me to come back here and share in this with you. But at the time, Worcester, biotech. Are you kidding, Dukakis? We couldn't be serious. Fortunately, we had some allies in Cambridge. People in Cambridge who were very concerned about something called recombinant DNA. I'm not even sure I can tell you what recombinant DNA is, but there was some sense that maybe this thing would escape from a lab and kind of envelop us all. And I said, well, if the folks in Cambridge don't want this, and we've got a German company which probably doesn't know exactly where Worcester is, maybe we've got a match here. And so, working with the BASF people and Bill Short, who played an enormously important role in this, and folks in Worcester, because the idea came from you guys. That's where it came from. And one of the great things about being in politics is the ability it gives you to essentially take those ideas, most of which are generated locally, and then try to see if you can give them some heft and some strength and some assistance. But I'm not sure, Gail, that hot morning with Jerry on that hillside, I could have predicted what had happened here. And the rest, as they say, is history. And I speak as a guy who was very committed to trying to bring the state's economy back, and especially its cities, but I was not a technical guy. I wasn't a scientific guy. I had done pretty well in high school biology and chemistry at Brookline High School, and then I went to a place called Swarthmore College, just outside of Philadelphia. A Quaker school. I didn't know a Quaker from a Shaker. I'd never been out of New England, quite frankly, ever, until I went down there. And I was a tentative pre-med. I was the son of a remarkable Greek immigrant kid who came over here and 12 years later graduated from Harvard Medical School, and I know how he did it. And I was going to be his successor. So I figured I'd start my pre-medical career with physics. I just couldn't get it. I had never had this experience in my life. The harder I worked, the less I understood. I got a charitable D. I was having a great time in political science, economics, and history, and the rest, they say, is history. But always very interested in healthcare and in all of the things that it brings with it. And just working with great people in this community, back at the State House, wonderful development team, managed to get things going so that you guys could take it from there. But the important thing, I'll conclude with this, is that the idea came from here. This wasn't something we kind of developed on the third floor of the State House. It was an idea that came from here, Worcester Chamber, Bill himself, good people, and we were fortunate enough to be able to pick it up and run with it. But my hat's off to all of you. You should be very, very proud of what's happened here.
Thank you. All right, Tim, you're up. You're sharing some microphones? Okay.
We all got our own.
Okay. In 2008, the Patrick Murray administration signed the $1 billion Life Sciences Initiative, which founded the Massachusetts Life Sciences Center and invigorated the Massachusetts life sciences industry. Tim, could you please discuss the rationale and process for passing the legislation and its impact on the Massachusetts cluster? In your comments, could you please include the impact that the legislation had on the $500 million Albert Sherman Center at the University of Massachusetts, Gateway Park, and other investments in Central Mass?
Well, the life sciences legislation certainly was a major initiative out of the gate for our administration, but I want to acknowledge that it was something that was able to, I think, pass in the first couple of years with the support of the legislature, and I want to acknowledge Senate President Chandler and other members of the legislature who played a big role in that process, and we were supported by that. But I think the fact that that was a major initiative out of the gate is about, similar to what Governor Dukakis talked about, Governor Patrick's experience in coming to Massachusetts. He came to Massachusetts because education presented an opportunity, and he would say regularly, this is our calling card. How do we invest and grow accordingly, utilizing and leveraging that calling card? And clearly, the life sciences industry is one that's competitive. A whole host of other states were rolling out their own initiatives to try to maybe take some of Massachusetts' market share away. And Governor Patrick said, you know, we are going to double down on this because I believe in the intellectual capital, the entrepreneurial spirit that exists, and quickly this became a major initiative. And sometimes, even if the Senate President or the Speaker thinks it's a good idea, they might pretend that they aren't as enthusiastic about it as they maybe really are because they want to leverage a piece. So there's a little dance that goes on. I know Lieutenant Governor Polito is familiar with it, that goes on up at the State House. But quickly this gained traction, and it was approved. And in that regard, when the money started to flow a little bit, there were a lot of good ideas here because of the work that had been done with the medical school, with the biotech park, and I felt it was a personal responsibility to make sure that Worcester got its fair share. And so whether it be the Sherman Center or working over at Gateway Park, we were able to bring some of those dollars back to further the momentum. And it was something that I was enthusiastic about from day one with Governor Patrick, because growing up and living in this community, having worked at the chamber when as people have heard me say, at the high school, when I was in high school, while this was rolling out, you could see the collaboration, you could see the partnership, and you could see how it was really diversifying Worcester's economy and creating the jobs that are so critical to our region. So it was really kind of a no-brainer, but at the root of it, Governor Patrick was, whether it be the life sciences, later on the green energy and green communities initiatives, it was all about education, innovation, and how do we leverage that, being ahead of the national curve.
Great, thank you. Okay, Travis, you got the gist. I'm kind of moving down the road.
Yeah, I think I got it.
Okay. Led by Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito, the Worcester Biomanufacturing Initiative was formed in 2016 to investigate the potential of creating a biomanufacturing park on surplus Commonwealth land within the city of Worcester. Through an incredibly collaborative process, legislation was passed, and the land was transferred to the Worcester Business Development Corporation. Demolition is underway, and the WBDC is negotiating with the first tenant for the park. Travis, could you please discuss the origins of the Worcester Biomanufacturing Park and the administration's Life Sciences 2.0 legislation, which once again demonstrated the Commonwealth's commitment to life sciences?
Sure. How much time do you have? So I actually want to start with your very first words, which were led by Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito. And if there's one takeaway that I have as the Worcester Johnny-come-lately to the stage here and to this community, I would say that this city has a legacy of strong, powerful leaders, civic leaders, who take issues by the horn and gather a group of people to get things done. Part of the history of the Worcester Biomanufacturing Initiative has been the leadership of your Lieutenant Governor. And it's been an honor to participate on that team as she wrangles us, harangues us, pushes, pokes, prods, and most importantly, inspires us to do something really special and unique here in the city. Our organization, the Life Sciences Center, a spin-off of Tim's, your work and Governor Patrick's work. Our job, when I took the helm almost 4 years ago, was in part a promise. I promised Governor Baker that I would give his administration a complete and 100% unvarnished assessment of the state of the life sciences ecosystem in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I promised that if at the conclusion of our assessment, if, in my opinion, the Commonwealth did not need the Life Sciences Center anymore, I promised I would be honest and tell him so. If, in my opinion, after my assessment, I found that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts did in fact need a Life Sciences Center, I was going to give him a number. And that number wasn't going to be an inflated number. It was going to be the real number of what I believed and we believed that the Commonwealth needed to invest to continue the flywheel that the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, that flywheel of innovation going. So we did that as an organization. We did a complete bottoms-up assessment of the life sciences ecosystem. We had thousands of conversations, both phone and in person, traveled all over the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We were not as ubiquitous as the Lieutenant Governor, who has visited every single city and town here in the Commonwealth. We had to manage our time a little bit differently because I was on the clock. But we went to every single region and we asked them questions about the state of their ecosystem. And we came back and the end of the assessment was, yeah, we kind of still need this organization. Other cities and towns, when we first started the Life Sciences Center back when you guys created the legislation, there were only 7 states in the United States of America with funds dedicated to investing in the life sciences. At the time we did this analysis, there were 44. So the competition had hotted up across the country, in addition to competition coming from Western Europe. In addition to that, the ecosystem had completely and totally changed. No longer were we talking about recombinant DNA. Now we were talking about not only genomics, but metabolomics and the microbiome. We were talking about editing the human genome for the very first time. We were talking about multiple modalities in the life sciences that simply did not exist anymore. So we needed a new strategy, right? And part of this new strategy, it became patently clear after those thousands of conversations that one of the biggest barriers to progress and growth, and you'll attest to this, I'm sure, but one of the biggest barriers to progress and growth in this industry was manufacturing. We knew how to research, we knew how to develop, we knew how to translate, but one of the things that we had not kept pace with, and this is not just in Massachusetts, but industry-wide, we had not kept pace with our ability to reliably, predictably, and without any fault whatsoever manufacture the drugs that we had discovered in the labs. So part of our strategy, it became really clear that we needed to double down our efforts in manufacturing, which was an endeavor which is not only just about biology and chemistry, but it's also about process design, process development, bringing in the engineers, bringing in the materials scientists. That entire endeavor was something that we had to double down on. So you look across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, right? And you say, who knows how to do this? What region has the native expertise, the history, the culture of understanding how to manufacture complex, complicated items? You look back over 350 years. Who knows how to do this in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts? And one region came up over and over again in our analysis, and it was very clear and it was Central Massachusetts and the city of Worcester. So this collaboration that emerged amongst the multiple different agencies of which we're just a part, the Life Sciences Center, but multiple agencies, multiple divisions of the administration, the city, the WBDC, all these great, strong, impassioned leaders, we all came and coalesced around this notion that that 42-acre parcel could be the clarion call to the rest of the community, the global community, that we were going to be the best at manufacturing those multiple modalities that are being researched in Kendall Square, at UMass Medical, and so on and so forth. It helped tremendously that we kind of all like each other. And I'm being really serious. It really helps to have a group of people, 20 people sitting around the table that generally speaking like each other. That can, right, Craig? Right? I can give you a hard time, and you can give me a hard time back. We had some tough conversations, right? It really helps with complicated real estate developments, with really complicated projects, to be amongst people that you generally speaking, you love each other, you respect each other, and you're all in it for the same reason. And I respect that. I respect the Lieutenant Governor's ability to be able to put those people around the table together. So we've got a fish on the hook now. We have one company on the hook. We've got a shovel in the ground. It's going to be a great project. And as you noted, this isn't about building something which is competitive with the city of Boston whatsoever. This is about building the best global real estate development for biomanufacturing. This is about attracting people from all over the world to come here to the city of Worcester to participate in what you have. And I'm really excited to be a part of that project.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Olson. Since the 1990s, AbbVie, then BASF, was a key anchor to the UMass Medicine Science Park, and now overlooks the development area for the Worcester Biomanufacturing Park. Research and biomanufacturing are conducted at AbbVie, which is appropriately located on the boundary of Worcester's biotechnology and biomanufacturing parks. So could you please give us a brief history of AbbVie and the role it plays as anchor company in the biotech park and its future? Notice how we started in the past and we're kind of going toward the future. Its future as a participant in the nascent biomanufacturing park.
Sure, thanks, Gail. So I'm going to give you the perspective of the history of science here in Worcester County, of pharmaceutical science, from the perspective of a scientist, because that's what I am. And as Gail mentioned, I work for AbbVie, which is a large global company. The second largest research site in the United States is located right here at Worcester, and it moved here and built its facility in the early 2000s. So we've been here for some time, and there's been drug discovery, manufacturing, and development out of that site for the last almost 30 years. So I've been here for about 14 years, and I'm a drug discoverer, and so what I want to share with you is my perspective of what's happened here in Worcester from the perspective of somebody, a drug discoverer. I kind of think of my whole life in drug discovery, so I just added this to that perspective. And I think the first thing I've seen since I've been here over the last 14 years is incredible innovation. I mean, the beginning of any really successful company starts with amazing innovation, and Massachusetts has that in folds. I mean, when I go all over the country looking for innovation, the United States is really separated into the innovation that's in the western part of the US and the innovation in the eastern part. And the eastern part is located in Massachusetts. So when I first moved here, I could look out of my 4th floor window and still see Lake Quinsigamond. With the investment in UMass now and the beautiful towers that they're building and the amazing innovation that's going on there, they have, unfortunately, obstructed my view. But I think the growth over the last 10 or 14 years with the investment from the state and the support and enable it from the city has been amazing. And when you see Gateway Park and the Biotech Park, which 10 years ago, if AbbVie ran out of space at 100 Research Drive, we could always assume that we could move and rent space in the Biotech Park. And now it's full. It's full. There is no room, and we had to negotiate and bargain for room. So that's a great thing, that level of business in science is coming and being nurtured here in Worcester. Same with the Gateway Park, which is really what's called an incubator. It's a place where people that have ideas and get what's called seed funding, like just a few $1,000,000, can go and start and try to bring their idea to life. And that's possible because of MBI and what they've really built here locally in the city. So if I move to what happens when you become so successful that you're full, is that some of those ideas become real, and they need to move to the next stage. And what happens in drug discovery when you go from your idea and moving to kind of that next stage of preparing to test your ideas in humans is you need a lot of material. You need a lot of drug. And you need more drug, whether it's a small molecule or a large molecule, than you can make in your laboratory. You need a manufacturing facility. And in fact, AbbVie has its own manufacturing facility in that building. And so when I first got on the board of MBI and they were doing their next long-range plan, there was a lot of discussion about manufacturing coming to Worcester, and I really supported that, because when you have this idea that you're trying to move into people, you don't need gigantic amounts of material. You need that small to mid-size manufacturing amounts, and that's what really will enable you to move to the next step. And so this investment that Worcester is making in the manufacturing park is coming at the perfect time for sustaining the growth of innovation in this area. And so I'm going to end with Karen's flywheel. And just in my own experience of bringing medicines from idea to potentially medicines, and I'm excited to share that immunology has 2 medicines launching this year. The first is already launched, and the second is a small molecule chemical that was made right at Biotech 5 in Worcester and will become a drug this year at some point. So if I take the flywheel and I look forward as to what I believe this region needs, it now needs that next stage. It needs the drug discoverer has enough material, is submitting its plans to the FDA to go forward into people, and it now needs the ability to do clinical trials in human beings. It needs regulatory, clin operations, a phase 1 unit, statistics, and I think that if Worcester could invest in building that last stage of this whole drug discovery process, it will become a major center for innovation in the eastern part of the United States. Thank you.
You're quite a lead-in for my next question, which we're going to take it to the future, and this is directed at all of you. So put your thinking caps on for future. So if you think about it, drugs and devices go through development stages. If you always see that arrow, feasibility, development, clinical evaluation, commercialization, MBI has sort of gone through that too. In the early days, MBI had a lot of tools companies, right, Paul Wengender? Tools companies, feasibility. And now there's a lot of drug and device companies, so they're going right through. Well, where's the next stage? The next stage is clinical evaluation. By being able to develop the small batches of drugs that are going into the phase 1 clinical trials, we're poised for that next step. So you just started, you were a great wingman here, talking about that next step. But if you can think about what that effect is going to have on bringing new jobs to the area, to all of the panelists, and how we should be preparing to compete on the world stage in the years to come. So if you have any thoughts. We're going to get Governor Dukakis to have an internship
I'm gonna listen
at
for a
Zeta
while.
Pharmaceuticals. Okay.
Because if you're a governor, one of the first things you want to do is listen to people who know something more about the subject than you do, and then take it from there. So I'd kind of like to hear, how does that move now? And can government, state government, working with this community, facilitate that process?
I think the government could help support the local medical schools to develop phase 1 units that will allow this local environment of innovation, getting their drugs manufactured, now to test those drugs locally. And I think I've heard a lot about the word collaboration here this evening, and I think that's a very powerful word, even when you think about a local environment and allowing all of the steps of drug discovery to occur locally so that you can talk to each other, figure out when things go wrong. And so I think what needs to happen now is the development of the infrastructure that enables that next step, which is the proof of concept trial. And that's going to require what I said, like expertise, contract medical organizations, contract clinical operations, which is critical, regulatory, quality. If there are contract organizations that can now grow in the Worcester area surrounding this biotech innovation and manufacturing innovation, I think you're going to just build an environment of innovation like we've seen happen in Cambridge.
One thing I'll also add, and by the way, we just actually invested in a CTU out at Bay State Medical Center. You probably know we just put $3.9 million into Bay State to build that very infrastructure you're describing for Western Mass, but it's certainly needed here in Worcester. But at the end of the day, one thing we hear all the time, people, people, people. And an idea that we're executing on is ensuring that Worcester Tech and all of the Voc Tech and high schools that are in the central Massachusetts area, as well as all of the 2-year and 4-year colleges, have access to internships and apprenticeships within our companies as well as within the research institutions to begin to gain access for students into this industry. That is critical to building a native environment where we don't have to worry about importing talent. We're working directly with your kids and your grandkids and making no presumptions whatsoever, but we're working directly with your kids to be a part of this industry and to be the next Lisa Olson, quite frankly. That takes both money for the internships as well as it takes capital to place into the classrooms the same type of equipment that they're going to have access to at AbbVie or at UMass Medical or WPI or the like. So human resources, human capital development is absolutely paramount on the list of needs.
Like Governor Dukakis, I was an American Studies major at Fordham University, and I'm a recovering lawyer and politician. So, but leading the chamber, and again, knowing my history and Bill Short's leadership and the teamwork and the collaboration that's existed with WBDC, the city, MBI, that recipe has been enormously successful. But as Travis just mentioned, one of the things that we've learned in listening to our members, 2,300 members of the Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce, the single biggest issue is workforce. And so we have very purposely gotten into the space, working on behalf of our members with the higher ed community, with Mass Higher, Central Mass, our Voc Tech schools, Quinsigamond Community College, and each one of the higher ed campuses on internships, on trying to make sure that we are doing everything we can to connect every day our business community with a higher ed community, but also the work training programs that are out there. Because like was mentioned, as Governor Dukakis mentioned, listen to Lisa. We were privileged to have Chancellor Collins here speak at our breakfast club this past week. Those are the people that I look to give us guidance at the chamber in terms of what we should be advocating for, public policy, what should we be strategizing with our elected officials, our lieutenant governor, the like. But behind all of that, we need the workforce, and that has been one of our strengths, and we want to make sure it continues to be.
Thank you.
Let me just add a few words beyond this, and this is not original with me. We were nice enough to be able to come out here with Bob and Marge Anderson, who picked us up and brought us out here. But being on the turnpike at 4 o'clock in the afternoon is not a pleasant experience. Folks, this state needs a first-class regional rail system that connects every single gateway city, not only with the capital city, but with the rest of the world. And I won't bore you by suggesting that closing the gap between North and South Station would be a major addition to that regional rail system, but I'll say it anyway. And the second thing is housing. And we're all concerned about it. Because quality of life is extremely important, I would assume, Travis, to the folks that you're trying to attract here. And Kitty and I are living in a house that we bought for $25,000 in 1971 in the town of Brookline, a modest half of a brick duplex, which is now assessed for $1.5 million. And I don't know where young couples, either in our town or out here or elsewhere, can possibly afford to live and bring up their kids with those kinds of prices. So it means that in this case, the Commonwealth has got to be deeply and actively involved, both on the transportation side and when it comes to making it possible for people to live and bring up their kids and do great things, and do so in an atmosphere that makes it possible for them to afford it. And there, I think, and it's not that folks at the State House aren't working on this, but I think there's got to be a sense of urgency here, folks, because it's really getting very, very tough. And, you know, I'm 85. I feel like $1 million, but I'm not going to be here forever. And I would like one of these days to be able to get on a train and go places and do so quickly and affordably. And more than that, I think our business community, our economic community needs this and needs the kind of housing that people can afford. So in that sense, government really does have a role to play, and an important one, in addition to all of the other things that you guys are doing together. And although this city, much of this because of its own initiative, now has pretty good rail service, you got to be connected to the rest of the world. And that means working very hard to build a first-class regional rail system, and one that can serve us in so many ways.
On that note, we have a lot of things to think about. Thank you to the panelists. We're going to go on to Visions for the Future. So thank you. We're going to be having some awards. From 86.
86. Just before Cara did that.
Thank you, Gail, for your leadership, and to our panelists for their incredible contributions to the cluster. It's evident that our success was only achievable through your hard work, and I'm honored to continue this tradition as the new president and CEO of MBI. I've been fortunate to have many incredible mentors in my life, and I'd like to thank Kevin O'Sullivan, Craig Blaze, and David Forsberg for their modeling collaboration and effective leadership along the way. We appreciate it. And I look excited now to take a look towards the future and where we're headed and where we can go, and particularly how we're going to do that here at MBI. It's been a healthy transition here at MBI. Over the course of the last year, Kevin, Abe, Bob, and I have worked with the Board of Trustees to develop a strategic plan for the next 3 years at MBI. Strategic plans at MBI do not gather dust, and these plans are the agenda for our board meetings and are the measure by which we are held accountable. I'm pleased tonight to announce one of the signature components of this strategic plan, our new incubator expansion project. MBI has been operating around 99% capacity for 3 years, and with laboratories often leased within weeks of coming available. In order to support the growing needs of our companies, MBI is thrilled to announce a major expansion into the Cogmetics building at 17 Bryden Street in Worcester's Gateway Park. This third site will double our current incubator capacity. We'd like to thank the Coughlin family for their partnership on this project, as well as Left Field Project Management, Consigli Construction, Lab Architect Group, and Kelleher Sadowski for their help in putting the project together. We'd particularly like to thank our partners at the Massachusetts Life Science Center and the Baker-Polito administration for their substantial capital grant that made this project possible. To Travis and the rest of the team at the Life Science Center, thank you for your support of our MBI companies, and thank you, Lieutenant Governor. The companies that we promise will make us all proud. The new facility, shown above, will feature an additional 18 laboratories for early-stage startup companies, and will also include a new concept called a Stage 2 incubator, which will help bridge the gap between where the companies leave the incubator in about 500 very full square feet to the private sector that wants them to have about 10,000 square feet. Design work on this new facility is nearly complete, and we anticipate a grand opening around the end of the year. So what does all this mean? At the end of the day, it's about jobs, people, and cures. And companies at MBI currently are working on treatments for pancreatic cancer, melanoma, brain cancer, enzyme deficiencies, autoimmune diseases like multiple sclerosis, and eliminating the need for children to have tubes in their ears, just to name a few. In addition, one of our companies is working on a technology that is considered the holy grail for blood transfusion. With an annual market potential of $4 billion, this technology will revolutionize the transfusion industry by sterilizing donor blood rather than the current testing and screening protocols. Like many of our companies, Zeta Pharmaceuticals started in a space smaller than a walk-in closet at MBI, but now has the potential to be a game-changing worldwide technology. David Tabatazzi and the team from Zeta Pharmaceuticals are here tonight. David, so get their autographs while you can during the cocktail reception. I'd like to conclude with one final message. We're asked at MBI a lot about how does Worcester compete against Boston and Cambridge? Our message is we don't need to. Worcester is an important part of the greatest life sciences cluster in the world, and that extends from Worcester to Cambridge. We call it the Massachusetts Biomedical Corridor here. Kevin's been talking about the burgeoning biomedical corridor for years. Our goal at MBI is to identify the best opportunities to complement, not compete, with the larger regional cluster. It's not Worcester versus Cambridge, it's Massachusetts versus the world. And we believe there are 3 main areas of opportunity for that. Biomanufacturing, which you're going to hear about from Craig in a minute, startups, which is part of our new building project, and then the service and contract research organization field. For these service companies, Blake Pharma, Biomere, and Charles River are great examples that are already here in the community. Worcester represents a major opportunity. Worcester provides access to a great urban fabric, a great eds and meds community, incredible quality of life offerings, and this region also provides access to the world's greatest life science companies and the best life science workforce. Worcester provides a world-class opportunity for these companies and at a much lower price point than Kendall Square. So we want to be able to tell this story. For these companies that require low overhead to compete, we would argue that Lincoln Square, Kelly Square, and Flaminio Square, which is at Belmont and Plantation Street, offer a better fit than Kendall Square and would maximize our cluster success by minimizing some of the transportation issues that the governor sat in on his way out here. The good news is we have these opportunities for growth. There are pad-ready development sites at Gateway, the new ballpark, and the UMass Medicine Science Park for these companies that can be offered at about 50% of the cost of Cambridge real estate. So if you're looking for a company to grow, if you have a service company and you're looking to grow, Worcester wants to talk to you. We want to explain that opportunity. And we want the world to know that Worcester is world-class. So thank you. Now for more on the future of the biomanufacturing park, please welcome our partner, Craig Blaze, President and CEO of the Worcester Business Development Corporation.
Thank you, John. John failed to mention that he started as a young project manager at the Worcester Business Development Corporation. So, Kevin and the board at MBI, thank you very much. What a great succession plan to bring John on. You see the energy and enthusiasm. What a great succession. Round of applause for the new president of MBI, John Weaver. Lieutenant Governor Polito hit the pause button when Lieutenant Governor Polito calls. Have you ever, any of you mow your own lawn? Have you ever seen how fast a flywheel spins around on a lawnmower? We don't hit the pause button in Worcester. When Lieutenant Governor Polito calls, it's fast forward so that we can catch up to where she is with the project. But Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much. As you heard from our panelists this evening, how difficult is it to lead on issues that you're not quite sure are going to catch hold? To chair a 25-member biomanufacturing task force and to stick her neck out to say, we're going to get this done. I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with DCAM, the state's asset manager. Very difficult to transfer property, to get legislation through to transfer property. She rolled up her sleeves, got us all together in that collaborative working relationship. We all pulled together, and in a record number of days, Governor Baker said 3 weeks before the end of the legislative session, you better get to filing that bill, because this is going to be extremely difficult to get through the legislature. We did it over the Christmas break, and on the last day of the session, and the last day, the governor signed the transfer of the property to the WBDC, and we were off to the races. So thank you for your leadership, Lieutenant Governor, and the Baker-Polito administration. Since we're all talking a little bit about our past, Governor Dukakis, I started at the State House in 1986. Another Charlie Baker, one from Auburn, Massachusetts, asked me if I would take a job as a legislative aide to a Greek Democrat, Paul Kolios, who hired me to work on his staff as a young staffer. And I learned a tremendous amount. He also talked me into working on a presidential campaign and heading up to Manchester, New Hampshire, with then Charlie Baker and John Giesler to work. We didn't beat Gephardt in Manchester, but we worked hard, and you won New Hampshire. But I worked for a legislator who supported a Greek Democrat, who was a Greek Democrat, who supported the largest tax increase in the history of the Commonwealth after a failed presidential election. And he said, could you run my 1990 campaign? And we did, and we won by 17 votes, with 17,000 votes cast. So what a way to start a career. So Governor Dukakis, thank you so much. You didn't hear the word Center of Excellence, but I worked on that program that you proposed in a budget and Worcester was one of the first centers of excellence, the biotechnology park, established back then by the Dukakis administration, led by Senator Jerry D'Amico and the whole legislative delegation to get that park up and running. And we thank you for that, because as you can see, the fruits of your labor have paid off, and it is just continuing to give back to the city and to the region. So what's next? We start with the ecosystem. Lieutenant Governor Polito, Governor Baker talk about this all the time. It is important to have the ecosystem, and this is one of the main reasons why the WBDC decided to get involved in this next phase, to put the exclamation point on this cluster. You see Lake Quinsigamon. You heard the development in 1970 of the UMass Medical School, which just continues to grow in the area of research. And then the shaded blue area, the WBDC took on the ownership of the former Worcester State Hospital property to develop 1 million square feet of R&D space that you heard is now full. R&D space adjacent to a top-notch national medical school, and then the work of the Patrick and Murray administration to get us a new regional recovery center, to do the right thing and create a regional recovery center with the Department of Mental Health. That new facility being done, it's surplused the area, the 46 acres that have been mentioned this evening, for the next phase of development. I think our speakers got it right on in terms of why we did this. The ecosystem is here. We have an incredible educated workforce with over 40 biotechnology programs located in 9 universities and colleges that are within the boundaries of Worcester. To have that workforce, to have the students graduating out of these schools to be available for the workforce for this next phase is critically important. I couldn't agree more. Affordable housing stock out here in Worcester. Again, the Baker-Polito administration, led by originally the Patrick Murray administration, to fund the billion-dollar bond bill to create affordable housing opportunities in gateway cities. Another key piece of the formula for Worcester. And we have housing opportunities here. You're starting to see it. The density, the people, incredible. The density, which is helping our downtown, but is also providing affordable housing for those who are going to work in this industry. And then the last piece, critical to the WBDC, is the availability of pad-ready permitted sites. We think we've got it right. We purchased it right from the Commonwealth. We have the right formula of grants that have come through for the demolition and the preparation of the property. Ironically, we had, I think, the 46th meeting with our Chinese partners at Wuxi this morning, who are attempting to build a 100,000 square foot manufacturing facility, the first anchor in the park. We're looking at Site F, but we reviewed today with them the permitting strategy to say that when they want to start, this is a 30-day local site plan approval process by right. The MEPA process is completed. All of the infrastructure for that site is in. There is plans to expand it and to keep it going as we develop the park in phases, but the first site is ready to go. So pad-ready, available, permitted sites is the last piece of the formula to make this work. We have laid out over 500,000 square feet of biomanufacturing space by right with sufficient parking in the park. So this really will put the exclamation point on the entire ecosystem in Worcester. With that, you have to have a good marketing and permitting, a good marketing and branding plan. With the help of the Mass Life Science Center and Travis McCready, he helped us assemble a very good team who went out and tested how we want to brand and how we want to market this park to the rest of our friends in the international community who may be interested in coming here. In the old days, not to be critical, but this would be called the Worcester Biomanufacturing Park. Today, that's not the way we work. We have to have a name, we have to have a strategy, we have to have the focus, which is complementary to the industry that will locate here. So tonight, I am pleased to announce, after a lot of work and a lot of money spent to put together the plan, the name of the new park. The Reactory. We think this is going to be catchy. It is going to be sufficient for the types of industry. We've already tested it with some of the park members who are interested, our potential tenants. They love it. They think we can brand this appropriately across all sectors. So we are pleased to announce the Reactory as the name of the new biomanufacturing park here in Worcester. And with that, thank you very much. So we have one final announcement. He would have never showed up here if he found out about this. Very special recognition that we want to announce tonight. I would like to ask the members of the Economic Development Coordinating Council who are here. I know Tim Murray is here. Mike Trainer is here from the city. Is Roberta Bryan here from... Roberta's here from WBDC, John Weaver. The EDCC and City Manager Augustus apologizes for not being able to be here this evening. We meet every Friday morning to coordinate the efforts, the development efforts here in the city. It's proven to be highly effective. A consensus of us, after some very short discussion, thought that we would pay tribute to our good friend Kevin O'Sullivan for all the work and the contribution of the original EDCC, having a career in supporting the life sciences and biotechnology here in Worcester. It would only be fitting and appropriate that we recognize the O'Sullivan way. If you know Kevin O'Sullivan, and all of you do, his way is like the flywheel. It is 1,000 miles an hour. How many people say, I just had a meeting with Kevin O'Sullivan and I'm exhausted? That is the way he goes. The O'Sullivan way, fast, effective, consensus building, always positive, always saying onward to go. But what a fitting tribute to take the biotechnology park, which will now be connected to the new biomanufacturing park, and make it an appropriate connection the O'Sullivan way. I don't think we'll have any problem getting it through the city council. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Craig. Our cluster is very lucky to have great leadership and great partners, as you've seen tonight. First of all, congratulations, Kevin. Appreciate your leadership over a long time, and your partner in crime as well, Dr. Abraham Haddad. Absolutely. Abe is a pioneer. He served on the Chamber's Exploratory Committee that led to the creation of MBI. He was a founding trustee, the first president, and has served as the chairman for the last 13 years. To say a few words in honor of, in tribute of Abe, please welcome his partner in crime, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Thank you, John. And this guy's going to do a great job. He's going to take it to the next level. And I appreciated, Craig's your comment. He's part of our future. So I want you to give one more big hand to John Weaver, please. Dave Grennan, would you come up for a second here? We don't have long up here. By the way, that's cute, I'm telling you. You know, we end the program with a wow. You know, I always said that. You know, when you leave, it's a wow. And, you know, we're all here today to learn some great things. And we're going to leave with a wow because we're moving forward. And Governor and the panel, you guys did a great job. And you've been with us from the very start. So thank you very, very much. One thing I wanted to mention, you know, Abe Haddad has been with us for a long, long time, 40 years. Hasn't changed a bit over the years. Consensus builder, somebody who's involved all over the place. They talk about me and energy. But, you know, his dedication and, you know, Governor, bringing in Bill Short. I was thinking, you know, Bill to me was my mentor. And tonight we have with us, and I really want to recognize him, Bill's son is with us, Rusty. Would you stand up, Rusty? Where are you? There you go. Bill Short, I was thinking, Abe, what do I say tonight to you? I just smile. When you think of Abe Haddad, you smile. And all of us have had a lot of different interactions with him as colleague, as friend. And, you know, we worked together over many, many years. And I was fortunate. Timing was everything with me, with Bill and yourself. But let me just tell you one story. I said, what can I say tonight that's really the importance of the role Abe played? And it was Bill Short, once again, who basically recruited Abe, and I was just a junior guy. I wasn't in the mailroom, Tim, but I was one level up. But I remember Bill saying, you know, this is Bill, he said, this project, the Biotech Park, is about, we're talking about buildings, and we're talking about economic development, we're talking about jobs, but we need somebody that will talk about medical and healthcare. We had no one. We're all manufacturers, you know. Joe Carter was a steel maker, and Don McGowan, who's here tonight, and John Hunt were the bankers. Dave Grennan was the insurance guy. But we didn't have anybody to talk about health, medical, and care. And so, I don't know if you realize this, Abe, but Bill Short went after you with a lot of vengeance to bring you on. And you constantly reminded us, and this is the one thing I want everybody to remember, it wasn't just about economic development. Abe kept reminding us always along the way, it was about cures. It was about developing medicines, Lisa Olson. And guess what? Look where we are today. So thank you for reminding us about what biotechnology and medical device and biomanufacturing and all of the other stuff, it's about, at the end of the day, it's about jobs and economy and tax base. But it's about all of us creating the cures that are needed for the future, not only for us, but for future generations. So, Abe, I want to just say thank you very, very much. We've been great friends for a long time, and we'll continue to do that. But always thank you for that special wisdom that you had. So I'm going to ask Dave Grennan to also, Dave was a predecessor as my boss as chair before Abe, and he'll say a few words as well. David?
Thank you, Kevin. Good evening. I think the biggest favor I can probably do after this very distinguished panel that you had today is be brief and be gone, so you can end up getting into the back and enjoy the rest of the evening. But Abe Haddad, you have been somebody that has been very, very special to this entire community. There has never been a task that you have not been willing to take on. You have not cared who has gotten the credit. You are willing to end up sharing that credit with everybody. The real definition of collaboration is building consensus and not really caring who is going to get that credit. That's what makes Worcester so great. collaboration, and in being sure that you have a driving force that has a vision for the future to make our society, our country, our entire person to be better. One thing before I end up saying a little bit about Abe, I would like to end up correcting that sign over there that says O'Sullivan Way. I don't know if all of you saw this or not, but our leader in many ways, Kevin O'Sullivan, received an honorary doctorate's degree from WPI within the past 10 days, so it's Dr. O'Sullivan. We have many, many fine schools here in the Worcester area, and there's none that's any finer that has an international reputation than WPI. And WPI has partnered with our organization at Gateway Park, and it has been wonderful. Abe, I want you to have an amazing future. I want you to take that handicap of yours, which is probably a 3 or 4, and get it down to scratch. We will know that you'll enjoy yourself, enjoy a little bit of freedom, know that you have done a wonderful job and have left a legacy, that same type of legacy that Joe Carter led for MBI. It's an amazing future, and I like to end up taking briefly about thinking of the future is like driving a car. The rearview mirror is a heck of a lot smaller than the windshield. And you today have taken a view of what we have done in the past and just stop and think about what the future is going to be here in Worcester, as you've heard these wonderful panelists know about what we're going to drive to be a vision for the biotech industry throughout the country. Abe, you have made an impact. I am so proud to know you, and you know the true meaning of collaboration. God bless, and be of good cheer.
If you had to think of somebody who was really the godfather of biotech sector here in Worcester, it's Abe Haddad.
He's been there since the very beginning, in the trenches, on the boards, working hard to talk up the Worcester area.
When I think of Dr. Abe Haddad, I think of collaboration. I think of teamwork. I think of the ultimate connector.
It's tireless. He always is thinking about MBI, is thinking about what's next.
You would think that he was only involved with MBI from the amount of time and the effort he has, but when you find out everything else that he is involved in, it's really quite amazing.
This community owes a huge debt of gratitude to Abe Haddad. Undertaking a project like this requires vision, energy, persistence, and consistent enthusiasm. Abe embodies all of that to the nth degree.
He has well served the research efforts of Central Massachusetts, and all of us owe a debt of gratitude for the tremendous leadership he's brought to our local community.
He also is so involved in Worcester in so many ways and has gained so much respect over the years. And I want to thank you personally, Abe. Not only were you a colleague and my boss as chairman of the board, but a friend. And I look forward to our continued association.
As it said, thank you, Abe. I'd like to ask Dr. Haddad, I'd like to first of all recognize his wife, Linda, for all the support she's given Abe along the way. Thank you. But I'd like to ask Dr. Haddad, Bob Anderson, our incoming board chair, and Gail Radcliffe, and if Kevin and Dave don't mind coming back up, join us on stage, and we'll for some recognitions of Dr. Haddad. Thank you. While they're on their way up, I'd like to announce we have a citation from both the Senate President Harriet Chandler, as well as from the Governor and Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito, as well for presentation. Okay. Senator Chandler, thank you. I'll turn it over to Bob Anderson.
So what a day this has already been. We had the great benefit of driving Governor Dukakis out here, and thanks to the traffic on the Mass Pike, we had plenty of time to talk about so many things. What I got the rare opportunity to do was to really thank him, thank the WBDC, thank Abe for all the work that he has done in getting the park ready. And I think this should be a prologue for the future. I was with BASF, working in magnetic manufacturing in Bedford, a dying industry. CDs were coming out, other things were coming out digitally, and we hadn't moved ahead. But BASF was looking for a home for biotech, and if Worcester was not ready, we would have lost the opportunity. WBDC was just influential in everything. The governor I got to thank, not just because it gave me employment, but because of all of the patients that have benefited from all of the research that's been done. I was stopped by somebody, I don't even remember his name, and he said, I would drive back and forth down Plantation Street, and I said, I wonder what's going on in there. Then I got hit with crippling rheumatoid arthritis. Then I found out what was going on in there. He said, and he's showing me this, and I'm going, what are you showing me? He says, I couldn't do any of that, so I thank you. So as an attorney, to be thanked by someone for some of the research, which I supported, was really kind. Very, very fortunate. I want to be like Dave Grennan and keep it as short as we possibly can, but I want to drop a little bit back to 1989 when we were looking, and again, we found everything that we needed here. And Gail Radcliffe made me laugh because she asked the governor, why Worcester? I think only 2 people in here laughed, my wife and I, because we're a German company, and our executives would come over and with the German accent say, why Worcester? And so it was very comical, almost like the Marx Brothers, but what did they find? They found land, they found NIH regulations in place, they found plenty of sewerage, water, et cetera, because they're going to have complex programs that needed the space and needed everything else. So from my standpoint, I did not know the governor personally at that time. I did not know anything about Abe. I did not know why this was available. I just knew it was, and it was providing a pathway for us to move forward. So I thank everybody that was involved in that. Do you have the award? Is it here? Okay, let's do this. So we have 2 different awards that we're giving to Abe. One is interesting because we are having a conference room that we are naming after Abe in our new biotech building. The reason we think it's so interesting is because we hope that everybody in the future will collaborate in that conference room. We were having a long-term planning meeting one time for MBI, and I came up with the phrase, he said, how do we differentiate? Why are we good? Why are we better? And I said, Worcester has a unique culture for collaboration. And he said, that's it. Like I had come up with something, here is the embodiment of collaboration with the number of things he does. Anytime we needed people, he could get them to us. Anytime we needed to bridge gaps, there was Abe. So we want to give you this plaque honoring you in terms of having our new conference room named after you. In addition, we're having the Abe Haddad Award, and people will discuss who's going to get it this year, but we are very, very proud to have an award in his name which supports the collaboration which is necessary for us to continue to move forward in the wonderful way that we have in the past. John, do you?
Lieutenant Governor, do you want to present this? Okay. Great. So then, with that, I present Abe Haddad. Yeah.
Thank you for that introduction, Bob. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for these meaningful awards, and also thank you to our great panel and those who participated in the video for providing the history of life sciences in Massachusetts and here in Worcester. When we started this, we had no money, no infrastructure, and no leverage to use to get players in the area to support us. What we had was a sense that we were doing the right thing, and we were right on target. We often said the key to MBI success was to get everybody on board to be a stakeholder, Based on that idea, we fostered a culture of collaboration, which has been referenced numerous times here today. Worcester was very different in the 1980s. There was little movement in the local economy, and unemployment was high. Manufacturing was in decline in the backbone of our economy and workforce. Major local businesses and institutions were struggling. Massachusetts was buffeted by international competition and global economic forces. Partnering with the Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce, the Worcester Business Development Corporation, and local government, we embraced science and innovation as the path forward. We launched the original Massachusetts Biotechnology Research Institute, and we built on it through the personal commitments of the private sector leaders, the support of the public sector, and that formula is still critical today. The essential ingredients were trust, a shared vision, integrity, hard work, technological shifts, continuity of the strategic plan, and sustained focus. To quote the physicist David Deutsch, everything that is not forbidden by laws of nature is achievable given the right knowledge. While everyone has been a stakeholder in the success of our city and community, there are many people whose efforts were essential to our success, particularly Bill Short, the then president of the Chamber of Commerce, Kevin O'Brien, president and CEO of Mass Biomedical Initiatives, and former chairpersons Joseph Carter and David Grennan. Also the leaders of the business community, the academic and research institutions, and our healthcare delivery systems, all of which were instrumental in providing support. We also had strong support, inclusive from the neighborhood groups, religious and labor leaders who lent their political and social capital, recognizing the opportunity that the initiative represented. Many in this room, indeed everyone working toward a better future in the city of Worcester and the state of Massachusetts, contributed to the success of MBI. Biotech companies can draw talent because of our great educational institutions and keep talent because of Worcester's livability and culture. Public infrastructure connects them to Boston and the rest of the world, while other businesses and industries create a dynamic commercial environment. Everything is connected, and there are too many people to thank by name. While creating an organization like the MBI can be challenging, it is undoubtedly a labor of love. While we were dreamers, we could not have foreseen that we would help create over 135 companies, over 800 jobs, and have a cumulative economic impact of over $900 million, and be instrumental in the creation of life-saving drugs and medical instrumentation like the world-renowned Humira. It has been a great run. We've been successful beyond our wildest dreams. Congratulations and thank you to all of you. Thank you to my fellow members of the Board of Directors, John Weaver, our new President and CEO, and to Bob Anders, who steps into my role as Chairman. Bob was General Counsel to BASF and AbbVie and was involved in citing BAS in Massachusetts, BASF, as he just referenced. I'm stepping down as Chairman of the Board of Directors, but as I step down, I encourage you to step up into bigger roles in the community, step up into more vocal advocacy of Worcester, and step up to become stewards of the next MBI and the next stage of our city. I would be remiss if I didn't thank my wife, Linda, my greatest critic, advisor, and supporter for 52 years. Thank you all.
Thank you all. We couldn't have found anything more appropriate for Abe than a place where people come together. So the conference room for Abe, the ultimate connector, be a place where collaborations will happen for life. And an award in Abe's name in honor of collaboration to us just seemed very fitting. So in that, we'd like to announce the inaugural Dr. Abraham W. Haddad Awards and their recipients tonight. So I'd like to welcome Tom Andrews, if he's here. I know he was battling Cambridge traffic like the governor on his way out here, as well as Craig Blaze from the WBDC for their leadership of both Gateway Park, the biotech park, and now the biomanufacturing space. I'd like to welcome Travis McCready to the stage as well for his leadership of the Worcester Biomanufacturing Initiative and his support of the biomanufacturing park, as well as our project at 17 Bryden Street. And I'd like to welcome Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito as well. I can't underestimate the effort that she put in over a 2-year period to really create this 25-member stakeholder group, this collaborative Worcester Biomanufacturing Initiative, and her great work. Thank you. So we're going to take some pictures up here, but we just want to say thank you to all of you. Appreciate your patience tonight. And we wanted to say with one final word, onward to the future. Please join us to celebrate at the cocktail reception in the end.